Hey everybody, it's good to see you all again. This segment is just to kind of let you guys know what is going on in this episode. So, in this episode, there is a situation. Towards the end, or anywhere in this episode, there is a blank. That means there's no sound coming in the episode, and you might think that is your fault. That is my fault. You can blame me, say it was my fault, because that is an editing problem, and that's because of recording and the recording platform that I use. If that happens to be in the episode, if that's in it, what you need to do is to just disregard it. Don't worry about it. Consider it like an ad break. Consider it like a break. Consider it like we're taking a 5 minute break. Consider it like that. So, no freaking out. No need to worry. Make sure you guys enjoy the episode, enjoy what's in it, and y'all have a good one. And enjoy this one. Really enjoy it and have fun. And please disregard the blanks in there. Consider them breaks. Hope you guys enjoy this episode and thank you guys for understanding and for your cooperation.
Yes, perfect. Thanks, Greg. Hey, everybody! Right now it is Sunday, so if you're in Texas, it's very sunny out. And I'm adding this extra weather thing because I ran out of things to say. Anyway, I'm here with Matt Hatt, and we got so much to talk about. And by lots, I mean lots. Like, this interview will change y'all. Listening to his music really has changed me. So I'm very interested in how we're going to roll with this. So, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me. I am very excited.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited too to be on here, have this platform. It's cool.
For sure, yeah. Thank you. Now, obviously, number one, which I want to highlight is on March 10th, you released your this huge album, which I do want to dive into because firstly, y'all, when I tell you that this album's really different, it is. Because firstly, the cover of it, it's literally it's a brain. It's a illustration of a human brain, and the album name is Corpus Callosum, which I've never heard an album title like that. I've listened to like over hundreds of albums. I've never heard one like that. So huge congrats on this. This was released on the 10th, so it's released very recently. So I want to kind of ask about this whole album. Like, how did it come to be? What was the process of making it? And how did you get that artwork done?
Yeah, for sure. So the album kind of came to be. I started working with this dude. His name's like spelled Ga. I think it's pronounced Ga. But like I haven't like met him like just online. We sort of met and like I heard some of his some like beats that he had like made, and I was like, yeah, this stuff's really good. And I sent him a couple like just miscellaneous, just throwaway verses over a couple of them, and he was like, yeah, no, you're good, let's work. And so we kind of just, it started as just like kind of making songs without having sort of an overall like idea or concept to it. And then at a certain point, like I started to think like, how can we sort of tie these together? And it sort of ended up becoming this like quote unquote like concept album in a way, like because I was looking into there's different ways. So it started as like I was like, okay, what if we had like two sides to the record, like side A and side B, and each side was sort of like represented like one half of the brain, because they say like left brain, I think it is like really like the creative one, and the right brain is really analytical. And so sort of using that concept to be like, okay, these songs are representing like so if it's like left brain, it's like, okay, these songs are just sort of like more artistic, sort of more like storytelling songs, like not really serious. And then like the second side, like the quote unquote right half, would be like, okay, these are like gritty, sort of like serious, like songs that are sort of like lyrically very heavy and very like hard hitting, because that's sort of the two camps that what I had the stuff I had written just aimlessly, it generally fell into either one of those two camps, either more serious or more like, just having fun, character driven. And then, so I was thinking about this idea of like having the left and right half of the brain, and then maybe, like I said, maybe splitting it up into like side A, side B. And I was just doing some Googling and looking into, just brain anatomy, just trying to get ideas. And like, so the Corpus Callosum, which is obviously the title of the album, it facilitates communication between the left half of the brain and the right half of the brain. And then I was looking at the tracks I had, and I was like, okay, well, what if I sort of laid it out like, so like it's alternating back and forth between like the left brain songs and the right brain songs. And in that way, like the Corpus Callosum is like facilitating communication between them, so it's like a back and forth conversation as opposed to just two, stratified, like, okay, this is this part of the album and this is the other part of the album, to sort of give it an overall, like to tie it together, and have it sort of go back and forth between those two sounds. And that's sort of how the idea of the title and the concept thing happened. And then I say, well, how can I distinguish, like one side from the other? And I decided to do, I think I saw like a Slow Tie album recently, like it did, where like the first half was all the tracks were in all capitalized letters and the second half were all lowercase letters. So I was just like, okay, well, why don't I use that? So like, the more creative character based songs are written, like the titles are in all capitalized, and the more right brain tracks are all lowercase. And that way you can sort of tell looking at like, like as a listener, if I wasn't there telling you all this stuff, you can still look at it and be like, oh, okay, so it's kind of grouped into these two kind of groups of songs. And then, like you're sort of able to piece it together. And then you're like, okay, Corpus Callosum, what does that mean? And then you look it up. You're like, oh, left brain, right brain. Like I'm trying to leave some of this stuff there for the listener to be able to, like work it out, so that I don't have to be there like, oh, hey, did you know this is what I was thinking? Like it's meaningless if it's not, if the information isn't there in some way, As far as the art goes, I literally just went on Instagram. I typed in like hashtag brain art, and then I found this like I just came across some like illustration of a brain by somebody. So I checked out their profile. Her name's JL Stewart, and like she did a thing where she was like doing a bunch of different illustrations and interpretations of brains. And then I contacted her. The original one I wanted to use, she was actually like, hey, normally that'd be cool, but this one I actually really like, and so I'm going to like you like, so she's using that as like her profile picture, and like, and so I was like, okay, what about this other one? And it doesn't look like the album art that's there, but I was like, okay, what about this one? Is it cool if I like use this and sort of alter it? And I sent her what I ended up doing it with it. She was like, yeah, that's cool. But originally it was just black background and like just the silhouette of a brain with sort of like paint splatters in it, and like all different sort of colors of paint splatters. So what I did, I just I took it into GIMP because I can't afford Photoshop. But I just took it into photo editing software, and I applied some sort of like edge detect filter on it, so like it did all the outline of it, like white outlines against black. And then I don't know, I just messed around with it a bit. I typed the title, put it in the corner. I was like, this looks pretty cool. And I was like, what if I like split it halfway down to reinforce the idea of this two different halves of the brain and inverted the other side? And, so I mean, but like, I tend to do that. Like with a lot of my album art, like I'll commission somebody. Well, this wasn't a commission. She had already made it. She graciously allowed me to alter it and use it, the art free of charge. But like what I've done in the past, I'll commission somebody for like art, and then I'll go in myself and I'll sort of like make small tweaks to it, just because it's so much easier than like, trying to like back and forth, like, hey, this is perfect, but can you do this very slightly different? If it's just like a color thing or something, okay, I can just do that myself, or like if I want to edit it slightly, it's like, all right, no, that's good. I've got the commission now, and now I can sort of, like make small tweaks to it. So that's sort of how the art came about. It was just something that I found on Instagram, and I was like, this is cool. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to do my thing to it now. and then he
Oh,
does that.
crazy! Wow, it's a very good, intricate, a concept album. I see. I definitely was listening to a couple of the tracks, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like it. It's a really, truly concept album because every time I was listening to the tracks, it just hit different. Every single track, it felt different, but at the same time, it felt pretty good to listen to those. So that I have the conflicted feeling about it.
Yeah, because like I feel like doing it that way sort of allowed me to explore a lot of different a lot of different areas. Like I've never been somebody who can like release an album where like every track has the same feel. You know, it's like an album of like 10 tracks that are all like '90s boom bap and very little different. You know, like I'm always trying to experiment with what different sounds I can get and like how to sort of push the medium, you know. And Ga, the producer, is also of that same mindset, you know, but very interested in sort of pushing boundaries and seeing what can be done. And you know, like I mean, and like he handled like all of the music, you know. And like I've done projects before where it's like I get beats from somebody that are already made, and then I just sort of add my rapping and like, you know, I'll like mix and master like the final thing. But for this, like he did it all, and it's like, yeah, it sounds really cool, and it's a sound that I couldn't accomplish on my own. So I'm like, yeah, you do that, because it sounds very like vinyl-y to me at points, or like just like the way he did my vocals. Like it's just a really neat sound, and I really like all the different like sort of instrumental interludes that he pulls in from different places. Like he'll start a track and it'll start with like 40 seconds of like this just random like obscure Japanese like, you know, jazz fusion track that then goes into like the next section, you know. And a lot of it is very sort of sectioned off as like different sounds coming from different places and like samples cutting in right where you don't expect them. But I think that also even adds to the sort of idea of the album in the first place, because it's sort of like you're having all these different thoughts happening around you, you know. It's sort of like it's like like you're inside a brain, you know. And like, yeah, but just the way he gets all these different samples and just puts it all together, it's like nothing I've ever heard. This dude's crazy.
I feel that, and I felt that too. Like I felt like I was inside my own brain. It's like you pulled out exactly the like foundation of like the brain, and especially like Fallen Angels and Movement 5. I felt like whoa, like as I was listening to it, like I. I almost, to be honest, I almost fell out of my chair whenever I listened to those. Like, that's how crazy the the song was and the production was.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and speaking about the production sound though, I want to definitely get into your music process, like generally. I want to know your techniques when it comes to production and songwriting. What's that whole process about? Because I know that you put out different sounds from jazz fusion to glitch rap. So I want to know I'm curious to know your entire music process.
Yeah. Okay, so like I mean, sort of when I first started like doing anything related to music, like I joined band in like fourth grade, and I just played saxophone. And then like so that's sort of where a lot of my music background comes from, is like as like a classically trained musician. But like I've always listened to a lot of hip hop. I love hip hop, you know. So like that's sort of what sort of got me into it. So like it's kind of weird. I don't like when I started like releasing music, I didn't even really think of myself like I wasn't doing it as a rapper. I was sort of doing it as a producer slash saxophone player that then sort of like started doing like more rap. I mean, it's been sort of a weird journey, and every project I release is sort of coming from a different place, you know. Like I I have released like fully instrumental projects where it's just me playing saxophone, with either like, sort of like neo digital funk type background stuff, or with like actual like band group of people, with like other horn players and a drummer and other stuff. So it really, my process sort of varies between project to project. Because I still do, like, even though this last album I just released, I was just rapping, like I didn't really touch any of the production. I still do like, I still do production, I still make beats, and I'm still getting better at that. And like a lot of my like I say most of my albums, or even projects in general, are like mixed and mixed and mastered, like by me, like at the end of it, like even if it's like I hand off to somebody else for some stuff, like I always have the final, like, I always have the final hand on. The sort of the same way with the artwork, like I always, like, I guess I'm like, okay, this is pretty good, but I think actually, it's kind of a bit too heavy in the low mids, and I'll just, take that and sort of work with that. But most of my stuff is like self-produced, like from scratch, like I make the beat, I rap on the beat, I do all the chops and flips and whatever else, and then I mix it, and then it's it's on the album, and I'm like, okay, that's good, and I do that for however many songs, and then I release it. A lot of the time when I'm starting like on a project or an album or whatever, like it starts with an idea, and sometimes like I'll just have like an idea like written on like a notes app, and it'll be like maybe like a year, where it's just that idea is just there. And then I'm like, okay, what should I do next musically? And then I'm like, oh, you know what? This idea sounds pretty cool. And like, I've done it before where I'll work out a track list, before I have half of the songs recorded, but I'm like, okay, I want this track to be sort of this vibe, these sorts of lyrics, doing this in the context of the album. Like, I'm very much album oriented. I think it's just because I've always listened to albums, like as a unit. Like I've never been somebody who can like who's happy like bouncing from single to single, and just like, okay, this is cool for 2 minutes. Okay, cool. This other person is doing something for 2 minutes. It's like, I don't know. I always prefer, I just feel like you can do a lot more artistically, in a wider framework that sort of albums provide, so that's sort of what I gravitate to musically. And yeah, but I mean, my process is different for every project that ends up being released. I mean, this last album was completely different than that, because like I said, it started with a few songs, and then I was like, okay, now let's figure out the concept to put behind it, and it sort of went that way. So it really just depends. I don't call myself like, oh, I'm a producer, or oh, I'm a rapper. I just think like I'm a musician, and I tend to do whatever is needed in any given creative context, like I don't like limiting myself to, oh, well, I make beats, but I make them really good, or like, oh, I just rap, but I'm really good at rapping. I just like whatever needs to be done, I'll try to do it. And a lot of what helps that is the fact that I have like a classical music sort of background, and I play like jazz, and I'm sort of familiar with all these different mediums, and the fact that I grew up listening to hip hop, so I'm familiar with a lot of, like how that works. And just like, I think my strongest, like what I'm strongest at with my music is just my versatility and my ability to adapt to whatever like a project calls for, because not every project calls for the same things. You get people who like, when they release an album, it sounds the same as every other album they release. Like they have one sound, and they do it really well, but every single song they release, every single verse they rap is just the same sound. And it's just like, it for some people they like that, but that's not for me. I always like experimenting with what I can do and trying to push myself to do different, weirder stuff, because I like weird music.
Feel that. And it's really nice that you don't stick to one specific category. Like, you really are exploring these different genres, which I totally love artists that step out of the comfort zones and really go into different kind of sounds. And I also love your point of view of production and your perspective on music. That's really enlightening to me. especially hearing it from a fellow artist, it's very reminding to me.
Mm.
But yeah, speaking to about production, I had a feeling that one of your weak spots is mixing and mastering. So I want to kind of talk about that. Not to pin you out or anything. I'm more curious
Now,
about. I'm more curious about like your point of view when it comes to mixing and mastering. So I want to know your take about it.
yeah, no, for sure, and that's a good point. I failed to mention. So like the first thing I ever released was mixed absolutely atrociously, but that's because like I mean it was the first thing I mixed. You know, I've always sort of been somebody who I want to release as much of my music as I make as possible. Like I don't want to pull down old stuff that sounds bad because I think it's worth having it up. Partially for the sake of, you know, somebody listening and be like, oh wow, that he was bad when he started and now listen to him. And part of it is just that, you know, like I mean, so, like partially for documenting growth, and also partially just because if one person likes it, even though I don't like it, that doesn't mean that's not necessarily good, you know, like because I have my own tastes, but that doesn't mean that if I make something I don't think it's good, that somebody else won't like it and then they'll be like, hey, let me do this. But yeah, no, mixing and mastering, um, every project I do, like I get a little bit better at it. So like my first couple projects, it was like, yeah, and by projects I mean things that I like collab. Like I mean I released a project with a rapper Salad Head, where it's like I did the production on that, you know, so I'm counting that as like one of my projects, you know what I mean? But like yeah, like I don't know. As time goes on, you learn how to do stuff and you get better at it. And that applies to mixing and mastering. That applies to everything in life, and it applies to everything in music, especially. You know, I mean, as I do more music, I get better at rapping. I get better at producing. I get better at beat making. I get better at mixing and mastering. I get better at working with other people. You know, I mean, that's sort of that's sort of the whole point. I like you see people and it's like they release like one single and that's all they have out for like 2 months, and then they drop another song and they like promote it and they try to get so much money into it. It's like if that's all the music you're making, like I get that some people like make a ton of music and they vault it, but I know people personally who like who only make like one song every month or two, and it's like it's not physically possible to progress as an artist in if you're not constantly, you know, like doing what you do and working on it and getting better. Because like every single project that you work on, every single track that you make, you get a little bit better, you know. And I mean it's sort of the same thing with practicing an instrument. It's like if you're trying to learn the violin and you pick it up once every like 3 weeks, you know, like you're just not going to become like super good at it because you're not familiar with it and you're not getting the time like doing it and working it out and figuring out like how it works, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I think nowadays there's a lot of people who are so focused on the promotion of music and like all the stuff that isn't actually making the music. They're worried on getting it produced super well and making sure it sounds super good. But if something sounds super good, like it should at least be worth listening to, you know? Like there's no point in paying like a few $100s for somebody to mix and master a song if the song itself at its core essence and its actual like composition and the writing of it is boring, you know. And it's just like, okay, this isn't anything. Like I could listen to several other artists who do exactly what you did better, you know. Like I think there's a lot of value in releasing things that aren't perfect, that sound sloppy, but you can see the sort of concept beneath them, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. And wow. I admire your intake about that. And again, I was asking because it is your weak spot, so I figured you have more to say about it. But I definitely agree about how artists take about, you know, singles and releasing that. You know, you're right. You know, even though you're putting out singles, and that doesn't mean you're progressing. So definitely very valid points that you're making for sure. Yeah. And And congrats, actually, this past December, you actually got a bachelor's in music composition from Rowan. So I definitely want to highlight that. That's a huge accomplishment getting a bachelor's. It's not an easy feat. So I want to talk about that. Like, how do you feel, now that you have a bachelor's, and how do you plan to use that, in the future?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny my attitude towards that because it's like like when I first started going to college, I like my first semester going to Rowan, which was right out of high school. I was going for mechanical engineering, and then I did it for a few weeks. I was like this sucks. I hate this. Like I was just thinking about music stuff and doing music stuff anyway. I was like, well, I might as well like get a degree for music stuff. So I looked at it switching. I switched over, and like, I wasn't paying as much money because I got in on, like, really good, I got it on, like, a really high SAT score, and for a few other things, and the fact that I was keeping all A's in all my classes, like, I was getting sort of reduced tuition based on that front, and for that reason, if I had to pay, like, the full price of tuition, like, what it says on the label, like, this is how much this education should cost, I probably would have just dropped out. But I was like, well, if I'm getting this much money off it, I might as well, continue with it and like graduate. And I do think that I got a lot out of the music composition program. I mean, it was all like when I say music composition, a lot of people aren't really sure what that means. Like it was mainly just like working with like sheet music, like writing like contemporary classical music, and like uh interfacing with like violinists and like trumpet players and all this other stuff and sort of like getting music played like that. It was a lot of like chamber music, which means like you'll have like three or four instrumentalists just playing a piece. But yeah, I mean, it's in some ways it's very different to what I'm doing now with my own music. um there was no production involved. It's just like, okay, I write it out on sheet music. Obviously I don't even use sheet music for what I make now, but and giving it to other people and they play it, and then you're learning how to write it better. So in some ways it really is not at all like what I do now, but in other ways it very much is, because it sort of opened up my mind to like how to think about music generally. Not only did it give me like a lot of theory background that I really appreciate, like just understanding, how different things work in music, like, how to modulate time signatures in between keys, and with the effects of slowing down and speeding up music and other things like that. But it just like it just kind of changes the way that you think about music, because you're constantly thinking for 4 years, because I mean I did for 4 years, so it's like for 4 years I'm always thinking about how I can use music to convey certain ideas, like without words, just using, like I'm like, how can I express the idea of jealousy with a single violin? You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. It's like these sort of thinking exercises where it's like your brain normally wouldn't try to do that, but when you have to, you sort of, you work out a way, you work it out, and then you sort of, it reframes how you think about music and how you think about what you do. Um, I mean, I'm not planning on going into music education anytime soon or anything like that. So like, I mean, in terms of like what I'm gonna do with my degree, um, probably not much. I mean, it is good to have a degree, because there are some jobs that just like, as long as you have a degree, like that automatically puts you above the tier of people who, don't have a degree. But there's not very much that you can do with a music composition degree. That being said, I'm very glad that I did go that direction, and not even like a related one, like music performance or music education, because like I'm not interested in music education, like I just want to think about and learn about creating music, and college really let me do that. And also I made some connections with people, and and now I have like, I'm like, oh, if I need a guitar player, I know a couple people I can contact who can maybe do that. Or oh, if I need a violinist or a cellist, I'm like, okay, I know this person, I could at least ask them, and they probably know other people. So if I had just like after high school just not gone to like further like schooling, like I wouldn't have known these people, and I probably wouldn't have even felt sort of the propulsion by the community I was around to even continue going further with music, you know. So I'm really glad I did it, but at the same time, it's not on paper the most useful thing, you know, for me. And I definitely think it's not for everybody. I definitely think there are some people who like that if they're thinking about going to college for music and they're like maybe they want to start like doing film scoring or something along those lines. Like I think in a lot of cases it's better to just hop in the field directly and start and sort of, you know, like figure out how to do it yourself as opposed to spending 4 years like taking classes, you know. Especially with like playing like an instrument. Like, you know, if you're a really good trumpet player, like you shouldn't go to I mean, maybe like to a music conservatory if you want connections, but like really even then it's like, you know, it's I think for a lot of people it's not worth going to college for music, but for a lot of people it is. So
Right.
yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. So this is a plus for you. Like it's a nice plus to have, which I think is very fair to have. I really try to push degrees actually, you know, because it's a nice plus to have. It's a nice thing to have alongside you, and you never know what could happen. So, um, you know, I do see your point about that. And yeah, well, congrats again though on getting the degree. At least you have one, so you can do so much to, you know.
Thank you. Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's a nice plus to have, but I do see your point about and it makes sense why you can't use it much because you're already making music, so you know that kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of like actual opportunities. Like, you know, I mean, if you want to play in a jazz club, they're not going to ask like, oh well, did you go to college? Like they're gonna ask like, okay, do you have like footage of you performing, or do you have like names of people like who can recommend you? You know, like it's all about it's at the end of the day, like music making as a whole is about the quality of the product that you make, you know, whether it's playing an instrument live or whether it's like really good mixes and masters or whether it's anything really really interesting beats. Like the main thing that needs to be there is quality. um like college just doesn't sort of carry like it doesn't mean the same thing for a musician as it does for somebody like an engineer or like, you know, a doctor or anything like that, where it's like, yeah, you need this specific education so that you can get certified to do this because there's one way to do it. With music, like anybody can make music, and the musicians that people really like, you know, they don't like them because they're super educated. They like them because they make good music. So the more time that you can spend making music and getting better at making music, the better, you know. And like going to classes that aren't directly related to what you're doing and spending a lot of money on them, it's like it doesn't always make sense.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I feel that. And I'm glad you're taking your own lead when it comes to music and all that sort. So definitely major props to that. And I definitely see where you're at about
Thank you.
degrees and their real use and value. So definitely feel that. And actually, I was gonna ask in relation to music competition. I want to know your take on music theory and composing and writing. Like, how versatile are you in that aspect? You know, since it's related to music composition.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, me personally, I like I've done arrangements for like jazz band. Like I do fucking anything. But in terms of like theory and its importance, I think a lot of people either overestimate it or underestimate it. And like, you know, like music theory is not everything, and I think especially in educational institutions, a lot of emphasis is placed on learning music theory. And you don't need to be a good theorist to make good music. I think that's like an obvious fact. Like you look at some of the best artists in any genre, and 9 times out of 10, they're not like classically trained. You know, they don't have the most amazing theory, but something about what they do is unique to them and the way they do it, and they do it very well. And you don't that like a lot of the time that doesn't need to be theory. A lot of the times you can do really interesting stuff and not understand what you're doing from a theory point. You know, if you're just like, oh, I like the way that this sounds when I hit these drums in this order. Like, you know, you don't need to know like, oh, that's a 5/4 bar with a sort of like triplet polyrhythm like put over it. Like you don't need to know that. You just need to know that when I do this, it sounds good and I can do it. But at the same time, you see people go too far in that direction where they're like, oh, well, you don't need music theory. You just need to make good music. And then they like refuse to learn about like anything. They're just like so super stubborn in about like not not even looking into like any basic music theory, you know, like rhythms and like what's a triplet. Like they're like, oh, I don't need to know that because I can do. And on the one hand, it's like, okay, like if you don't think you need to know that, that's fine. Then just don't know it. But I feel like as an artist, it's sort of your responsibility to constantly be learning new things and trying new things and figuring out how to make art better, or how to make your art better, you know, and how to create in better ways. I mean, I'm still always looking at like, you know, new music theory stuff and learning about everything. I have a book right next to me, 20th Century Harmony by Vincent Persichetti, and it's just full of this like super weird, esoteric, like strange music theory stuff that none of it like you would look at. So I'd be you would listen like. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words. Like it's just weird and really complicated, and like you don't need to know it to be a successful musician. Like you don't need to know it to be Taylor Swift. Like you think Taylor Swift like knows anything about music theory? She probably just, you know, knows how to sing. I mean, she knows how to sing, but like she probably couldn't write a single one of her songs out on sheet music because she doesn't need to. But I personally like being able to understand fully everything that I'm doing, and from there using those different pieces of what I do, you know, like using those different pieces that I understand, I can break it down and sort of change things independently. You know, like I'm not like wandering around aimlessly, like, oh well when I rapped this before it sounded good. Why can't I find the beat this time? Like I much rather be like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I come in on the end of 2, you know, and the flow goes like this, you know, like I can write out every single one of my flows on sheet music, you know. I mean, it's just a matter of understanding the medium and having a better understanding of what you do. So obviously music theory isn't essential, you know, for creating music or for creating good music, but it's really helpful if you want to do stuff quickly. And it's also really useful if you want to, you know, like to find out how to push the envelope,
Right,
you know, in one way or another.
Yeah, and I admire your take on music composition, though. I'm definitely getting the feel about it, and like I've seen it, but I've never like heard such an intricate analysis on the concept itself. So it feels crazy that you know so much about the composition, and yet these other people they don't tell it like how it is right now, like how you're telling it. They don't really tell it like that, like how you're telling it to me. It feels like wow. It feels like a revelation. Like, oh wow, now I'm seeing it. And now I'm seeing what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it also is that a lot of people grow up, or not just grow up, but like their music making only extends to the scene that they're in. Like if they're like a rock guitarist, they're going to be around rock musicians and doing a lot of that sort of stuff that's within that field. Like But like, because I have the insight of like, I've played in a funk band, I went to school for classical music, I've played jazz music, I listen to rap music. Like there's a lot of overlapping concepts that, like, I think the more you listen to and the more sort of ideas that you pick up from different sources, the more you realize, oh, this is all connected. Like, it's all the same. Like, at the end of the day, music is just sound. And it has these elements like pitch and rhythm and timbre. And like those are the main ones. And then from there, and harmony, but that's an extension of pitch. But like with these, you can sort of expand and go into depth in each one, and every sort of genre or sound world or culture does it differently. There are a lot of cultures that don't use 12 chromatic pitches for a scale. They'll split it up into maybe like 10, or it'll be like unevenly distributed. But like knowing a little bit about a lot of different genres sort of allows you to have a better overall understanding than if you just, like, if you only know jazz and you've been a jazz trumpeter all your life and you're like, okay, I know how to play trumpet, I know how to play jazz really well on my trumpet, but like you probably wouldn't be at all comfortable playing in anything that isn't 4/4 or 6/8. But there are like time signatures, you can do anything, but if you're a math rock drummer, you have to know like all these, you have to be able to very intricately switch between different time signatures and tempos and rhythms, like at the drop of a hat. So it's a different skill set. So I think if you learn a little bit about each sort of thing, and just spend time around these different genres and different ways of thinking about music, you'll sort of get a better understanding about music as a whole, and I mean, there's terminology stuff where different cultures call the same thing by different names. Like, even just thinking like, a saxophone, like in a classical sense, I mean, they probably call it a saxophone. In funk, you would call it a horn, like, or in jazz arranging, you call it a horn. But in classical music, a horn is something different. That's referring to the French horn, which is a different instrument entirely, and just stuff like that. It's like weird terminology stuff where there are synonyms for other things that are just used differently, like tempo, BPM. Like that, tempo and BPM are the same thing, but like when you hear somebody say tempo versus when you hear somebody say BPM, they're usually coming from two different places, like, and it's just interesting to see how different different groups, different cultures, different societies, different genres even think about different aspects of music in different ways, because at the end of the day, it's all the same. Like, you're not losing anything by hearing how Indian classical music works. Like, you're not losing what you already know about music by learning something else. I think some people are scared to learn because they think that it'll change the way they think about things, and like they'll lose their ability to create freely. But in my experience and what I've always seen in other people's experiences, the more you know, the better grasp of everything you have on everything, and the more you're able to create what you want to create, as opposed to just blindly going at it by chance. And maybe if you keep saying these words over and over, you'll find a cool rhythm. Like, well, no, how about this? Like, a triplet flow sounds cool and you want to speed up the energy here, do that, and then go back into a sort of more laid back, sort of hazy, blur the lines duple thing. Like the more ways that you have to understand music, the more music you can create, and the better you can.
And I definitely see where you stand when it comes to that. I definitely can relate to that. I've heard a lot of points of views of just the industry and just the concept of music itself. So it's good to hear. It's good to hear a refreshing view about it, especially coming from somebody who has literally mastered the base, the foundation of music theory. Like, that's why I felt like it was very important to have this conversation, because you come from an area that's not only difficult. Like, I'm also a band student, so I like I've had a difficulty with understanding theory. It was important to me to hear from somebody who has graduated with music composition, to see somebody who has been in this industry long enough to see what it's about, and especially somebody who made such an intricate concept album like this, and this built into a brain, and that's why I felt like it was very important. So thank you for all those views. Like, it really has changed my intake when it comes to music, and even to stuff like, music theory and all sorts of things. So thanks for that.
Yeah, man. And I'm always thinking about music and like how it relates to sound in general and how different things work. And I'm always thinking like, oh, what if I didn't use this? Like I've made songs that don't have a time signature because there aren't drums and there's not a pulse. It's just sort of freely over a drone. Like I think it's just a matter of like thinking creatively and always thinking about it and trying to think, oh well, what happens if I do this without doing that other thing? Like what happens if I put jazz horns over like drum and bass drums? Like just having that curiosity and that impulse to try things out, I think, is really one of the best ways
Yes,
to sort of
definitely.
be creative.
And I feel like that's one of the few ways to really, be creative. But yeah. Um Now, and again, thanks for these views. I'm sure there's a lot of fans watching that are going through the same similar things, that are either like in college like you were, or who's, growing in this industry and trying to grasp on music. What would you tell them?
Um, I would say that if you're not sure if you want to be a musician, then don't try to be a musician. Like the only people who like I think it's very valid to tell people that like being a musician sucks because a lot of it does. But like if you need to be a musician, like it's sort of an internal thing, like there's a desire to create music regardless of how like awful it's going to be and how poor you're going to be and how long it could take. And like if you want to be famous as a musician, I think it's not even worth like going into music in the first place. Like I think as a musician you have to be going into it with the understanding that you may never get more than 100 people listening to your stuff. I mean, you'll probably get more than 100, but like, like you may never um have people listening to your music. You probably never be like famous. You probably won't even be like locally famous. And if that's something that you expect from music, then like you don't understand what it is to make music or to be a musician. Like I see a lot of people now, especially in hip hop, that um like they want to be a rapper, but they don't really care about rapping. They just want the status of like of being a rapper and like, oh wow, yeah, I made this track and all my friends like it. Like they want to they want to make money, and they think for some reason they think that being a rapper is a good way to make money. It's not. It's such a slog. It's really difficult. It's terrible. But if you really love music, then you should do it. I mean, like the only like I think that if you have a genuine love for music and creating music, and you just want to create music, like nothing can stop you from doing that. And if you think that there's something that can stop you, if you're like, well, I do really like engineering, but music is also kind of fun, then be an engineer. Engineers make way more money. If you can enjoy that, like do that in a heartbeat. It's way better than being a musician. But for some people, myself included, it's just like, I need to do music. Music is all I care about. I love music. I breathe music. I can't live without music. Then what are you going to do? I mean, like there's plenty of jobs that I should have there are plenty of careers that are better for me to be on paper than being a musician, but I need to create music. I need to be a
Right,
musician, so
yeah.
I am a musician. You know what I mean? So don't think it's great. Don't glorify being a musician. It sucks, but you know, if I think at a certain point people know. I think people know
Yeah,
like if they're really into
definitely.
music.
And I feel that, yeah. Very, very valid points, and you are not wrong about all that. You are not wrong at all. And that truth actually hit me when you said that. Like, that truth literally, you know, the expression truth hurts, that literally hit me.
I hurt
But
you.
seriously, though, much appreciated for your intake. And speaking about the intake, you still have something you wanted to share with fans, which I'm very excited for because I haven't heard a real performance in a very long time. So, if you're still down for that, we'd love to hear, you know, what you got for them.
Yeah, of course, man. I wrote this specifically for this podcast. That like last night I got home, I was like, you know, I'm gonna write something specifically for the Rapid podcast. So I wrote down like a 16 or whatever. Yeah, I got you.
Get into it, yes.
You want me to just get into it to start? All right, fire, cool. All right. All right. Rap it out, rap it out. I treat my dream like charades and act it out. I'm killing it, no revenant like DiCaprio. I bear my spirit, just energy, no decaf allowed. And musically, I'm killing it here with musically. The way I carefully craft my phrases will have you losing sleep. I see people sleeping on me, they seem confused to me. I know their fame is waning like the phases of the moon should be. They're scared, but there ain't no shame to lose to me. I'm one of a kind, you're Bruce Forsyth, I'm Bruce Lee. Truthfully, my ego too brutal to be bruised by these fools who jack styles and act like they've been spewing heat. I'm too sick, I need a meat thermometer stat because I got that gobstopper flow, the gift of the gab. I'm breaking jaws, and I hate to break it to y'all, but I'm breaking the law the way I'm speeding past all the fake limits that y'all been imposing on yourself. I'm too venomous, dog, just like a poisonous pit. Poison is what I spit, writing every bar from scratch. Play that shit in reverse and reserve your front row tickets for the back of the hearse.
Awesome. That was really good. I feel really special that you wrote that just for me. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I love writing. You know, I love rapping. I love all this. I'm glad that I can make music as I do and continue to make music. You know?
Of course, yeah.
And I'm glad to be on the podcast.
I definitely enjoyed listening to your music. I knew, I was like, yep. I'm gonna ask, because as soon as I saw that post with the brain, I was like, hold on, wait a minute. And I saw that you haven't done like this before, so I was like, hold on, wait a minute. I need to reach out because this guy hasn't done one in a long time. I mean, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this guy a try. Let's see how it rolls.
Yeah. I'm happy to have been here.
I love talking to you. I love your intakes on all music, and you got so much going on. Now you did release this project a couple of days ago, but do you have anything that's coming that we should know about, what to look forward to?
I have so much shit, man. No, like so I always have stuff that I'm working on, and like lately I've been falling into the trap of like releasing too much stuff too close together. Like I dropped an album on January 1st of this year, and then I dropped like a short mixtape like a month later, and then I just dropped another like decent sized album, you know. I have a couple things I'm working on. I'm hoping to do sort of a few remixes from a previous album, put that out as a unit. I'm also looking into getting back into the saxophone stuff because the last few things I've done have all been like rap. So I have some ideas for going back to a saxophone based project, and then but those are both going to be pretty small in size. Like I have one main like large like decent sized album that I have ideas for. I've started talking to people about it. I'm probably going to be working on it for like several months. It might not even release by the end of this year, but I have those smaller projects to put out in the meantime so that I'm still releasing stuff. But there's definitely big stuff coming in the future, sooner rather than later. And yeah, you'll will see more about it when
I'm super
I get more
excited.
done.
That's so exciting. I
It's
cannot
gonna be really
wait.
cool.
I'll probably be stalking Instagram. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
I already have though, but y'all should. Y'all
at
definitely
the real
should.
Matt Hatt.
But anyway, regardless though, I do truly thank you for taking your time out to actually come here and to do this. Even writing that verse for me, that was very sweet. And I'd love to do this again later on when you have more stuff out. I definitely am looking forward to more and more from you, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, for sure. I look forward to making more stuff.
For sure, yeah.
You know how it is.
Did you have anything lastly that you wanted to, tell your fans, tell the listeners? Anything lastly you wanted to say to them?
I mean, not really. Like I said, follow me on Instagram at the real Matt Hatt. Go stream the album Corpus Callosum out now with producer Ga. Follow him on Instagram too. Is GA_Corpus.
Nice.
And yeah.
So thanks.
Sub to me on YouTube. Look up Matt Hatt. Just sub. Anything I'm on. Just follow me everywhere.
But seriously, though, y'all make sure you check him out. Matt Hatt everywhere you can see him. Literally, I googled him up. He's Googleable. So that shows he's official. He's Googleable. I'm not sure if that's a word or not.
Yeah, I made sure when I was like thinking about my name, because the name Matt Hatt, somebody like a drummer in a funk band I played in, like sort of like ended up giving me that name just because I like was wearing a hat, more often than not. And he was, hey, Matt in the Hat, and that became Matt Hatt. And so I was thinking of like names that I could like release music out as, and I like when I specifically looked up, like I was like, okay, is there anybody else like big that uses the name like Matt Hatt or Matt in the Hat? And like Matt Hatt, I was like, okay, cool. There's like nobody, so I'm good to use this. So I made sure when I was picking my name, I did think about it. I was like, is it easily Googleable?
Yeah. That's the main thing you gotta do as a musician is to make sure that your name is like concrete, because you don't want to be like a wannabe, person, because then that just makes you sad and pathetic if you're just a wannabe. Right.
Oh. Yeah, like future. Can't Google that. It's already a word. Not
I did not think of that. That's funny. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that was funny. Like, my bad. But seriously though, y'all need to check him out. He is fun. Y'all should check out his latest album. It's really good, and if y'all real musicians, y'all should check him out for sure. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did. It definitely made Sunday worthwhile. Usually today is like my lazy day, so I was really unsure if I was going to be able to do this, but he has saved me from my slumber, so thanks for that. Right. I feel like that's everybody's Sunday. It's just sitting and just, lazy life. But I knew I was like, I gotta set up as soon as possible. This guy's gonna be really something. I knew I had to. Of course, yeah, for sure. And
Thanks, I
I always got
appreciate
your
it.
back. You got a new supporter, me. Um, if you need really anything, I totally got you. You are a serious musician, so I'm definitely behind you 101%. Get it? 1%. I love puns.
You know, same here, man. I like when you reached out to me, I started looking into the podcast. I was like, oh, this is cool,
Thank
man.
you.
Like I really
Yeah,
like what you're doing with the
much
podcast.
appreciated. Although there has been two weird things that people has been so weird about. One, they think the podcast is hip hop. I forgive me y'all for the name that gives it off, but I do everybody. People kept asking, they kept saying no because they thought their music wouldn't fit with hip hop, and I keep telling them, you can come, anybody can like come and like do this. Like, I'm sorry the name gives it off, but it's just because the show started like a full hip hop thing, and then I went on and got everybody else. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end
Yeah.
of the day, music is music. You know, I mean, and hip hop already, like it's there are a lot of different you know, like there are so many different directions it goes in and different kinds of sounds. Like, you know,
Very,
I think it's
yes, very
already
inclusive.
quite inclusive of a
And
lot of
some people think
sounds,
it
you
was a
know.
scam or something until they realize that the links I have is real. They thought it was too good to be true because you know the saying, "It was too good to be true. It likely is," or some people say it is.
Yeah, it's funny because I got your like when you reached out to me, it was like a few days after I had gotten something from somebody else who clearly was a scammer, like claiming to be some like magazine writer, and they were like, "Yo, go, you know, this is what I was getting," and I'm like, uh. Okay, you got any more details? And they're like, "Oh, of course you'd have to pay." I'm like, "Bro, like your English is terrible. You're clearly not a writer." Like so it was right after off the heels of a scam thing, and I was like, oh, okay, what is this other
That
thing? And then
is
I
too
looked into it. I was like, oh,
ironic.
okay,
That is
this is
crazy
actually cool.
that a scammer and myself came at a similar time. That is too ironic. That is crazy. No way.
Yeah, it's just like a few days apart. I was like, whoa. Nah, you cool though.
That's the most ironic thing I've ever heard. That is crazy. But at least you know now that I'm real and that other guy is nothing. Did
Maybe
you
not. Maybe you're just like an
know?
AI voice that's talking to me. Maybe you're a hallucination.
How dare you
Is it
call
even
me
real?
AI? AI still sound as real. I
They do
know.
now. Have
It's
you
it's
heard some of the
scaring
bro?
me.
Like
Like
it's getting
it's generally
crazy what AI can
scaring
do.
me.
The future.
Like I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people say that about every like sort of big technological thing. People are like, "Oh, the internet is going to be the end of it," you know, and it's like not just the internet, but like with I'm not thinking of any specific examples, but like I know there have been other things where people are like, "Oh, this is gonna," and like it's gonna change things, but it's not gonna be like "Oh, it's the end of civilized humanity because we can't tell what's real." Because I mean, there was a point in time where like Photoshop wasn't a thing, and people were like, "Oh, now that Photoshop's a thing, people are gonna be manipulating all sorts of photographs, and you won't be able to tell what's real." And we're still now not at a point where it's like a threat in that way. So it's just gonna be different. Like I said, it's gonna be like social media getting big. Probably won't even be that big, like as big of a change as social media was for society. But I mean, it'll definitely change some things, but it's
Exactly.
not a threat to people.
Exactly.
Like
Like
we're
even if
still
we
gonna
didn't
be
have
people
it,
doing
like
people
we'd still be
things.
living life.
I'm not too
People
worried about
forget
it.
that before people were living just like we were. People were just who they are. Internet and advanced doesn't really define people. It's just a plus to have a phone or a computer, like kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, people used to live in villages. They'd like go down to the blacksmith to get like metal, like you know, they go down to the leather worker to get their shoes, and like
Right,
they go
right,
visit the
yeah.
farmer to get some bread. Like we got so
I
much
would.
stuff now.
I wish I could go on longer because I'm a history buff. That's okay. That's okay.
Damn, I can't believe it's been an hour.
You're a
Sorry,
very
sorry for
talkable
keeping it so long.
person.
I talk a lot.
Sometimes when people talk a lot, it's sometimes a bad thing for them when they talk too much. But like you, I'm fine with because you do talk a lot. But you're a very good conversationalist, so I felt like I could talk to you for hours. Much obliged, and I wish I could go on about history. I'm
Thanks, I
such a
appreciate
history
that.
buff. I'm a really nerd, so history is kind of like my other thing that I would talk about forever. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Where was I at? Right. So y'all got a little tiff of that too. So y'all can now go home and y'all can say you've learned a little history too. Since a lot of y'all going back to school tomorrow. Some of them are going back to school in college. As I think start on Tuesday. So good luck on that, y'all kind of thing. So, again, final words. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned a lot and enjoyed this as much as I did. I got lots more in the works. Follow my Instagram. Wrap it out everywhere you can find it. I'm literally on 15, 20 platforms. So if you can't find me, then you are blind as hell. So, uh, yeah. But anyway, regardless, I hope you all enjoyed this. Share it around, support, and don't do drugs. It's stupid, it's dumb, and if you do it, unless you have a valid excuse, please don't do it. We already have maybe just a little bit, but please, y'all,
Only in moderation. Only do a little bit of
a
drugs.
little. But seriously, do not. And I will catch y'all the next interview I do, which is I have a couple today actually. So good luck for me. But I'll catch y'all later. Much love, be blessed. See y'all. Peace out.
Peace.